Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is well today. Thank you for coming along to this session. It is great to have you here. The hope is that it is a very interactive session. So any questions that you've got, any sort of thoughts you have around construction and careers, we really do want that two-way contact and communication going. I'm sector manager at SDS. I know quite a few of you already, and for those that don't know know me, contact me anytime. I'm joined here by sort of two colleagues from two different organisations who are experts in their field and here to talk about careers. So I'm joined by Lorna, who is, I'll get her job title, Education and Skills Partner at Zero Waste Scotland, and she's here to talk about the circular economy. So welcome, Lorna.
Hi.
And also welcome to Stephanie Craig. So Stephanie is from CITB and she's Customer Engagement Manager. However, her focus is careers, and she was brought in to very much focus on construction and built environment careers. So great to have you both here. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. The format for today is we're going to start with Lorna, who will sort of do a presentation and talk through careers in the circular economy. It will then go over to Stephanie, who will talk about careers in construction and built environment, and then over to myself to sort of round up again with a little bit of focus on construction and green skills and the approach there. And then we're hoping to have plenty of time for questions and discussion. So any questions that arise sort of during the presentation, please come on screen, talk to us, or pop the question into the comments box at the side. So thank you very much for again for giving us your time, and look forward to the session. So I will hand over to Lorna. Thank you, Lorna.
So yes, I'm Lorna Conway. I'm Education and Skills Partner at Zero Waste Scotland, and I wanted to talk today just about circular jobs in construction and what these jobs kind of look like for the new and emerging workforce. I actually just came into this position in August, so it's kind of quite new to me as well. However, I was a secondary teacher before that in West Dunbartonshire, so I totally understand the importance that young people need to see the kind of jobs of the future and understand their skills pathways. And I'm really excited to be here today because coming into this role has given me a kind of different aspect of the kind of jobs that are in construction, especially to do with circular economy, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today. So basically, Zero Waste Scotland are a kind of Scottish government funded organisation, and we're here really to support kind of the circular economy and just to bring kind of different ways of thinking about resources and waste. I've put up a couple of pictures here. I don't want you to think you have to answer the questions or go into the chat or anything, but it's just to kind of get us thinking differently about what I mean when we're talking about circular economy. So really what we need to think about moving away from is this kind of linear economy where we take material, we build something or we create something and then we waste it and it just goes straight in the bin again. So we need to move to this kind of economy where we see waste as an asset and we see waste as a value, and that creates this kind of circularity, and it's really it aligns really well with the construction sector, because obviously within the construction sector there can be a lot of waste, and I think there's great opportunities there for future jobs in the circular economy. So just looking at those pictures, just to get us kind of thinking differently. The first one, how long on average a car is parked in its lifetime? How many minutes do you think on average a power drill is used in its lifetime? And what percentage of banana is used and what is wasted? So I'm just going to give you the answers just because I think it's quite fascinating. So basically a car is parked for 92% of its lifetime, 92%. So huge amount of time that it's not actually used. The drill is used for 13 minutes of its lifetime. So again, not used very much. And 33% of a banana is wasted. So really what we're trying to think about is how we move to a circular economy which has waste at its centre, and we can create a kind of workforce that designs out waste and uses waste as a resource. And as I said, I think the construction sector really holds huge opportunities for that. So you can see here just from those kind of bullet points that the construction sector uses more natural resources than any other sector in Scotland, consuming about half of all resources used annually. And the construction and demolition is also responsible for nearly half of all Scotland's waste annually. And I think there's a really kind of important gap here, as well as that kind of waste that the construction sector is responsible for. We also import 60% of the materials used in construction from the EU. So we're actually importing a lot of the products used for construction, when in fact we're also wasting a lot of those resources. And that's where the circular economy becomes super important, because we can start thinking about how can we value that waste, how can we use that waste back into the construction sector. And I think there's a huge opportunity, as I've said before, for that kind of circular mindset to become part of the kind of skills pathways that young people follow into construction, and think about the opportunities for jobs in the future. So what I'm going to do in the next kind of 3 slides is just highlight 3 different kind of circular strategies that align with construction. And I just kind of pulled out some roles, well, 1 role for each of these, just to kind of give you an idea of the types of job opportunities that could be created in kind of the circular construction sector. So the first one is off-site. Now, off-site construction I know isn't new in construction, but it is a kind of growing sector. And between 2020 and 2025, the sector is going to grow by 18%, which creates huge opportunities for a workforce perhaps that haven't thought about working in construction before, because maybe that kind of traditional on-site construction puts people off. But if we have this kind of on-site construction, which is this kind of modular construction where a lot of the built environment is done within a factory, for example, it could open up huge opportunities for a much more diverse workforce. Because people maybe have been put off with barriers to do with things like health and safety, the weather, for example, getting to an on-site location. So because we're now kind of creating these kind of modular parts of the construction, it could open up more opportunities. And as you can see there, I've just put in skilled production assemblers, joiners and finishers. And I know they're not new jobs, but the environment in which those jobs are now being done may seem more attractive to a more diverse workforce. And I kind of just wanted to highlight that, because again, that was something that I hadn't really thought about before I came into this role. Another really great opportunity, which I think is brilliant, is this idea of we need to start recycling building materials. The EU recently said that 0% of construction waste should go to landfill. And at least 70% of it should be recycled. So that in itself creates huge opportunities. And you can see there I have put one of my favourite roles, which is material scouts and urban miners, which I think is the kind of jobs that young people don't know about. They don't know they exist, and they don't know they'll exist in the future. And I think that's so, so exciting, because these jobs are more than just waste jobs. They're more than just recycling jobs. They're more than just sorting jobs. They're actually looking for value in waste and then pulling that into the supply chain, which I think is, a really exciting job opportunities for the future. And there's also really exciting, innovative opportunities for young people. I've put a wee website link there to Kenetech, which is the makers of the K-Brick, who are an organisation that have done a lot of research and development over the last 10 years to try and produce a kind of environmentally sustainable brick, and they've just recently kind of launched that and won loads and loads of awards. So they've produced a brick which is made from 90% recycled secondary materials from construction. So they're taking that waste and they're turning it back into a brick to be reused within the construction sector. And that creates massive jobs for young people away from that kind of traditional construction idea. And it brings those kind of entrepreneurial innovation skills to the forefront of the construction sector, which I think is fascinating, and I love it. My final slide here is again really exciting, and this is the digitalisation of buildings, which again was something I hadn't really thought about, and hadn't really thought about the opportunities that this creates. But this is a building in the Netherlands that is 100% circular, in that every single piece of material, every product within that building has been registered. So they know exactly where it came from, and they know exactly how it can be taken apart, and they know exactly where it can go next. And again, this kind of creates this idea of material passports, which is something that's being used more and more in the EU and places down south in London, for example, and slightly more in Scotland, but there's certainly an emerging market for it. And because of these material passports, every single bit of material within a building has a reuse value. It has a value. And that's super important as well in terms of what happens at the end of life of a building. Can it be reused? Can it be put somewhere else? But that in itself creates wonderful opportunities in terms of digital opportunities within the construction sector, which again, I think is something that I hadn't really thought about when I was talking to young people about jobs. But it kind of opens up a whole new sector within construction, which again, I think is really exciting for young people to kind of learn about and know about. And finally, just before I finish, you probably won't be able to see that, but you'll see it better when you get it sent out. But I really like this diagram because it just kind of focuses on those kind of new jobs that could be created with these kind of circular strategies. So looking at things like recycling, what are the jobs associated with it? Looking at this idea of digitalising buildings, what are the jobs associated with it? And kind of off-site construction as well, and what are those jobs? So I will, obviously those links will be sent out, but really what I wanted to kind of highlight today was this idea of how can we think differently? And I hope those little pictures at the beginning kind of highlighted that idea of, you know, your car and your drill, and how can we think about using these assets and these resources differently and seeing value in them. And I think that aligns really well with the construction sector. So I'm going to stop there because I've probably talked too much. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them now or at the end of today.
Thank you, Lorna. That was really, really good and really interesting, and guess quite sobering when you think about the materials and the resources that we have that we never use. And I think I've definitely got one of those drills that's probably been lucky if it's only, I don't think it's even made it to that average. It sits at the back of a cupboard. But so that was really good. Is there any questions sort of coming up now? Again, we will hope to have all of us sort of online ready to answer questions towards the end. No, I think that's us for questions, and now we've got interesting and thought-provoking, which 100% agree that was. So what I will do is I'll hand over to Stephanie in the meantime, and she will sort of do her presentation. And again, I think we've got a question for Shona. Keen to find out where those jobs mentioned can be found. It's whether we pick it up later, or do you have any more data on it?
Yeah, so we have quite a lot of reports on this, and we have a construction kind of partnership sector within Zero Waste Scotland to do loads and loads of work in this. I mean, for example, there's loads of work at the moment in terms of retrofit and kind of what could the jobs associated with retrofit in buildings as well. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities, and I've got some great colleagues who probably know more about this than I do. But yeah, they'd be more than happy to talk about that kind of thing.
Thank you. We can get some links and get some information, and we can pick up around the college union courses. What we'll do is we'll pull all that together in the end, and where the sort of gaps are, and what's progressing, what's not. So Gillian, I'll pick up, if it's okay, I'll pick up all your questions. We'll pick them up at the sort of final stages, because they do tie over and go together. Stephanie, I will fire over to you in the meantime, and then speak again afterwards. Thank you. Thanks again, Lorna. That was really good.
Thanks, Lorna. Thanks, Elaine. So yeah, just quick introduction again, Stephanie Craig. So I'm actually just new to CITB, only started in December. So I came in as the kind of careers manager, which allows me to focus more on raising the awareness of the careers in construction, the opportunities that are available to young people, and sort of career changes and everything in between. So that's very much my remit, is to work with key stakeholders and industry to provide that support to enable that more skilled and competent workforce. For me and for my side of things, I look at on the wider engagement, and these three key areas that you can see is like the nurturing of people, the development of them, and then the retention. It's all fair and well putting things in place to get them into construction, but we have to kind of keep them. And for me, again, it's all about raising awareness. So my slides are very brief, but I do have some discussion points at the end that hopefully you'll have some thoughts on it as well. So just going to throw out some key facts. Some of you may already be aware of this anyway. This was from the CSN data, I think it was last year. So over the next sort of 4 to 5 years, it's estimated that Scotland will need approximately 20,000 new workers. And we know that there's a steady recruitment drive, but the skills shortages are still there for all to see. CITB has a wider engagement team that's more than just myself, who are talking to people on the ground in industries, small, medium, large and micro-sized businesses, to understand the challenges that still remain. So these aren't the only three, but these are the kind of main key areas that they're still falling short of skilled and competent people in the labouring side. And when you consider construction professionals, and Lorna touched on a lot of these kind of new roles that are going to be coming around the corner, so it ties in really well to the kind of more professional and technical type staff, like technical coordinators and program managers, commercial managers as well. So there's obviously a kind of plethora of different types of roles that exist within construction that aren't just trade or craft specific. The word on the ground that we're getting, as I say, as the wider CITB engagement team, is that the workers that are coming through aren't cutting the mustard, basically. So my job is to try and figure out what interventions that we can put in place to help people before they've made that jump to FE, to try and give them as much information as possible about the possible careers in construction, and to get them prepared for that, basically. And what that looks like can be a multitude of different things that we'll kind of pick up with on my next couple of slides. In terms of the ED&I side, we're still a kind of average UK of 15% are female. 2% are still, that's been like that for years now, 2% apprentices. But when you're looking at the wider grand scheme of things, the construction apprenticeships within Scotland is a third of all types of apprenticeships. So when you consider the industry we have here, that's a really, really big chunk of people coming into apprenticeships. So my role is to try and enable that and provide stepping stones to get into construction, but also provide enough information that they understand what their career pathways could look like. And I suppose that's where you guys come in, and the help that I'll need from you going forward as well. In terms of CITB itself, so everything that we do has to be sort of part and part with the business plan that we have published. You can have a look at it on our website if you really want some midnight reading. But the three main pillars that we have to ensure that we are doing is any intervention or anything that we put in place is, as you can see here, to improve the construction pipeline, define the pathway, the training pathways, and deliver an efficient supply, training supply. So within the role that I have here, I'm looking to do that with these, as you can see, these types of initiatives or programs. So I'm looking in the earliest engagement side of things when you're looking at pre-employment training and different initiatives. But I also would like to work with you guys to create toolkits for schools so that we can start engaging at a much earlier stage. CITB seems to kind of step in more when it comes to the apprenticeship side. And I want to really pick up with the younger kids prior to that side, because I think at that point you've maybe lost a few because they just don't know that it's there. And throughout everything that we're trying to put in Scotland, it's all about being led by demand, being led by the people that know, and that's you guys, and that's industry. CITB aren't the experts, but what we are is an enabling facilitator or moderator to be able to put things in place. And everything that I wish to do going forward will be in collaboration with stakeholders like yourselves and directly with industry. What I'm trying to do is plug some gaps. So I know that there's a lot of stuff that goes on kind of early years in high school through, DYW and Build Your Future type things. And then I know that there's obviously CITB, but the colleges step in towards, 16, 17 years old after they've left school. And then there's some other things towards the end, or, when they're trying to upskill. As I said, I've identified, just as I say, coming in, being kind of brand new on the ground, I've identified that there's still a bit of a gap in that prior to employment or prior to FE stage. And that's the part that I'm trying to pick up. So this diagram basically shows that I think that I can plug the gaps with some of the initiatives that we're doing, but it won't mean anything unless we can get that early engagement. And that's very much where you all would come in and provide, invaluable experience and knowledge. What these kids are like when they're speaking to you, their appetites, and what they can achieve. And to pick up something else that Lorna had perhaps mentioned earlier on as well, understanding when a young person has an aptitude for something that could lead to a career in construction. You know, if somebody was, you know, has an aptitude for maths, you know, they could go down the quantity surveying route, but they maybe don't know that that is a job that exists, or they maybe not think that, oh, I'm good at maths, I don't need to, you know, I want to be an accountant, but they can be an accountant in a construction company. So I'm trying to basically create some sort of engagement where it says, when you can understand this young person is good at something, what could that career be instruction for whatever it is that they enjoy doing. So I hope to get something like that to all schools and all you guys in the coming months. It's just finding the resources to do it just now. So today I'd quite like to discuss with you guys, and some of you may have already seen a survey that I had sent out, some of you may have not seen it yet, but basically I'd like to find out what you guys have by way of materials or resources that you can discuss construction careers with a young person. You know, what are you using just now? Do you know what's available out there? What do you think is working and what isn't working, and what would work better in terms of resources, in terms of engagement? And if possible, I'd quite like to open that up to discussion now. Because I'm sharing, I can't see if there's any hands or questions. So if somebody could help me out, or if anybody has an immediate thought on this, I would love to hear it.
So there's an answer in what people use, that they say people use MyWow, which is World of Work, obviously it's SDS one, and Planet Plus. CITB website, Go Construct gets used as well, and it's been mentioned a couple of times. Obviously, like in apprenticeship.scot as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people are mentioning Go Construct as well.
If anyone would like to come on and speak, if you'd want to use the raise your hand button at the very top, I can take you off mute. Got Caroline Barkley. You should be able to come off mute now, Caroline. Hi there. I'll pass you over to Stephanie. That's Caroline.
I'm just thinking I still find that I'm still highlighting CITB, the apprenticeship website, to young people. I don't think they're very well aware of it.
Okay.
And then the Go Construct website, which is a fantastic resource, but it can almost be too much, because a lot of pupils might focus on Joiner or you know, the kind of things that they know about and hear about more often. So I really like the Go Construct. I like the CITB, and then when, you know, they can apply for it online or apply for the aptitude test. But then that seems to be, they get a little bit of support in terms of, right, do the aptitude test, either they've passed or, you know, but then they're still, you know, obviously the emphasis is on them to then find an opportunity.
Yeah.
I just feel there's maybe a disconnect there. I think maybe the CITB could really have a greater input with that. We're all trying to find where the opportunities are.
No, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. That was as I say, I'm brand new to CITB. That was one of the things that I've kind of gleaned from multiple conversations. So, you'll be pleased to know it's one of the first things that I'm trying to fix.
Oh, that'd be fab.
There's a lot of work going on in the background just now, and working a lot with industry to engage more when they're at that point where they have, you know, maybe taken that test and thinking, oh, what can I do now? And, you know, they're really needing somebody to come in and take a chance on them. So
yeah,
that's very much underway.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Another question is getting asked, you know, there's a lot of engagement with the websites, but is there any plans, are you looking at practical activities for young age groups, or what is your focus there? And there's a question around, like, you know, National Numeracy Day coming up as an opportunity to highlight the careers. Yeah,
there's a lot on the calendar in terms of what I want to do for the career side. Obviously, I can appreciate I'm just the only person in Scotland that's doing it just now, so I need to pull in some resources for that. But what I plan to do is almost kind of create an event package so that we've got stuff available that we can just kind of cart around to the different events. Because for me, the biggest thing is the constant exposure for these young learners. You can't just, you know, engage with them in S2 and then forget about them until they're, you know, eligible to go on work experience age. So, you know, across the board, we need to be engaging consistently and constantly, and keeping that message true, but also keeping the message positive. And that's why I was keen to kind of find out what tools would be better working for you guys. Because as we're still got that shortage, so we're not providing the right information for young people, because it should be, you know, an attractive opportunity for them. So we're still just not getting it right here at CITB. So I'm trying to yeah, trying to work with direct customer feedback or direct feedback from people that are using what we've currently got, to make that a bit better. But there are lots of careers things planned. We've got, you know, kind of parliamentary. They've got the ear of the Parliament basically trying to say, you know, where we fall short, or if it's not in scope with us, could they intervene with local grants and things like that. So we're constantly kind of pushing the envelope to try and get support from every angle. Like, obviously you can appreciate how hard it is to get anything out of Parliament just now. So we're trying our best.
I'm just going to turn on Shona's mic for you and she can ask a question. There you go, Shona and Stephanie.
Hi there, thank you. Hi there, Stephanie. I was just wondering, are you able to visit schools at all? I just feel I've got so many pupils every year that want to do jobs in construction, but so little opportunities. And that's why I was quite keen to find out where the jobs actually are, because obviously we've got an idea of places like Mears, apprenticeships.scot. We do use like CITB and lots of different websites, but I feel like the amount of people that are interested in work in this area doesn't quite match with the opportunities that are available. And it would be good to actually, you know, have people come into schools and explain like all these excellent opportunities that are available in other areas and where they can look for those opportunities. That might really get, you know, start filling those gaps that I think was mentioned.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. And I believe from the past that CITB did do that. They had a kind of team that were dedicated to do that sort of thing. And the team is just now me. So yeah, I'm mobile anyway, so I'd love to go into schools. It doesn't really, I'd be happy to arrange something, you know, perhaps pulling in some colleagues from the apprenticeship side, and we'd be more than happy to speak in the schools when you know, when the time suits for all parties. No, absolutely.
Or even if there was something,
totally
oh, sorry, Stephanie, even if there was something that you could pass on to us, and we're obviously already in the schools and we can maybe deliver, you know, and speak at assemblies, you know, but I think ultimately it's about where are these opportunities. If we can get that across, you know, if you guys are quite short of staff.
Yeah, no, I don't know if there's anything particular other than that, you know, what's online already, but I know that some of the sort of medium to large size businesses that we it's not account manage, but it's kind of account manage here, on the customer engagement side, they tend to do some work in the local communities in terms of advertising. So I'll try and pull some stuff together. What area are you in, sorry?
In North Lanarkshire.
North Lanarkshire.
Thank you, that's brilliant. Thanks, Stephanie.
See what we can pull together. Thank you.
What we can do, I'll come on camera. I think what we can do, because there is that definite sometimes that bit of a contradiction where you've got a construction sector that's very adamant that they're not very popular in the same side. There's so many people looking for opportunities and sort of struggling to get in for some roles, not for every role. And what we can do afterwards is, I think we'll send out the email next week. We'll send out links to sort of again to Marketplace, links with Stephanie, and we can look at what we can build from that side as well. And you've got the Development Young Workforce Work Taster. It's not quite the same as going into School for a Talk, but we've got that project as well, so we can connect it all together. I'm a little bit conscious of time, because I wanted to sort of pull everybody in for questions at the end. What I think would be good as well is we can put the questions in the chat, and if we don't have time to pick them up, we can go away and get together as a collective and sort of form some of the answers into the email that we send out afterwards. Yeah, because we're talking about willing to speak to groups of young people post-school. Absolutely no reason why we can't do stuff post-school as well. So I think it might be good just to pick all that up afterwards, if that's okay, Stephanie, or is there anything else?
Absolutely, yep. Thank you.
Perfect. No, right, so that's Liz. Thank you very much, Steph. That was really interesting. And I think what's even just clear from the comments in the chat and from the couple of people in the call, that I think in terms of careers, construction, so I'm dealing with people that are dealing directly with whether it be careers advisors, the DYW staff, or any other jobs, there's so many questions and so much potential there. And I think there'll be certainly really good opportunities as we move forward, just to get those better links built in, but also to make sure we sort of build forward and move forward positively. So thank you. I will jump in then, get my presentation bit done, and then we'll come back and pull everybody on screen at the end for any other questions. So thank you very much. Okay, everybody. So again, thank you for having me here today. Elaine Ellis, Construction Sector Manager. So I am not going to talk for too long for presentation because I think the sort of questions at the end are much more valuable. But what I will do is just do a little bit of highlight into construction and sort of green jobs. Again, picking up from some of Stephanie's presentation, picking up from Lorna's presentation also. So net zero and construction, it's basically just to say that the two are linked. I think on a time, you certainly wouldn't have had construction as one of the first sectors that you thought about when you thought about low carbon green jobs. But certainly over the last 3 years, and with the sort of declaration of the climate emergency, that has changed. It's changed for good reason. When we worked on and we created the climate emergency skills, we got the evidence base, and the evidence base showed really clearly that the opportunities that are there very much tie construction and net zero together. It's one of the areas where we see most increased demand, I think, and I cannot read anything that's on that screen because it's far too small, but it's looking at around about 25% of all. Thank you for that. See, ask and you shall receive, can I see? So construction accounted for around about 24.5% of increased demand for jobs. So we know that there'll be more demand for jobs as a direct result of the move to net zero. We're looking at the highest proportion of green jobs. Now, the main one is going to be professional occupations. Within those professional occupations, many will be construction or the circular economy side, but skilled trade occupations, so that is your plumbers, your joiners, your electricians, and a list of occupations there are the next highest percentage at almost 20%. So it is an absolute major area. Why? And I think the sort of various reasons for that. One is around something that conscious it crosses into my job regularly, and it's all around heat decarbonisation. So there is a major challenge ahead around retrofit and heat decarbonisation of our buildings. If we think just in Scotland alone, we've got around about 2.5 million dwellings, so that's homes, which will all need to change by the time we hit 2045 to be net zero. There's lots of targets that are kicking about in the background. It will come at the sort of forefront over the next couple of years, but certainly the goal is by 2030 to have 1 million homes to some form of low carbon heat, which will, at this point in time, whether that be the installation of heat pumps or changing over to district heating or heat networks. And there also moves there to change the energy efficiency of homes to make them so that we do lose less heat. So again, improvements to roofs, insulation, improvements to sort of windows and doors. There'll be improvements in terms of energy efficiency, whether that would be installation of solar panels or battery storage, the list goes on. These jobs sit within construction. So a lot of the workforce that is already there is sitting in place and ready to do these jobs. And if anything, I think I once heard a sort of rumour or this feedback from somebody who was saying that they were told not to go into plumbing because or become a gas engineer because they would be at risk of losing their job in the future. If anything, it's almost the opposite in terms of skills there. You know, it might be that in time we move away from gas, but it's that same skills base that will easily transition to sort of installation of heat pumps and or other renewable technologies there. So anybody that trains in that field really is sort of set up for life because these skills will be desperately needed. The other reason it's so critical, and I think it ties back to Lorna's presentation, is the changes to how we will build buildings. As Lorna said, there's a huge percentage of waste, a huge percentage of our carbon footprint comes from the construction of buildings, and we will need to design that out. We will need to look at how we change that. Apparently 23% of all emissions comes from just free resources that are very commonly used in construction. So that's concrete, steel and aluminium. That 23% is an absolute massive amount. That will need to change. And I think in terms of professional jobs at the background, to look at the materials we use, to look at how we use them afterwards, there'll be a huge volume of work coming on that side. In terms of jobs and skills demand, this is some of the jobs that we know we'll need around heat decarbonisation. We are going to need people to design and specify measures, so the measures that will start to change our environment, we'll need people to understand that and tie up. Some of them will be within the trades, but some of them will tie in various professional roles, be it surveying or architects. And we will need people to work on installation and retrofit, as I spoke about already. Selling customer service is going to become even more important in construction. We are going to need people to guide us through the changes to our buildings. There is major changes afoot that is going to impact on each and every one of us on that call in terms of how we use our heating, in terms of changes to our buildings. it's not minor changes, and it's certainly not in our usual comfort zone of what we expect. So we are going to need a lot of support, and that support again will tie absolutely over with the construction sector. And the jobs are there, again, they're fairly not a major surprise, but we will need more plumbers and HVAC engineers. If anything, plumbers will become even more popular than that right now. We will need more electricians, more surveyors, more architects, more roofers, more people involved in surveying. The retrofit roles that, again, that Lorna mentioned, we will need more people connected over. We're saying heat pump installers there. In practice, heat pump installers, certainly at this moment in time, will be coming from sort of plumbing, HVAC field. Retrofit designers and coordinators when we need. Again, that is a role for sort of qualified building people to upskill and sort of train towards so that they can provide good advice on housing. So there's a huge pipeline of work. And what is clear is that we don't have the volume of skills that we need right now. Numbers, I'm not going to sit and list numbers. I'm sure you're well aware of, seen many of them. We need more people is an absolute, is a very safe statement in construction. I think you're looking at almost 70,000 people we're needing to bring in the sector in the next decade. A lot of that is to do with just the age of the workforce. A lot of it is replacement demand, so to replace those people that are leaving. But a large part of the numbers, and again about 15,000 of the 70,000 is growth, and it's expected growth that we expect in construction. If anything, it might be an underestimate because the way the statistics are done, it can't really take into account the full impact of net zero because it's not yet necessarily in proper pipelines just as yet. A lot of it sits in policy. As that changes from policy to actual pipelines, it's likely that these figures will get even bigger. The ITB data also shows that we need to hire round about an additional 3,910 each year to cope with the sort of, again, the gap between what we're bringing in and the people that are leaving. So there's absolutely huge numbers that we are needing to bring in. Now, again, this has already come up. Construction does way above average in terms of apprenticeships. It's already, about 26% of all apprentices. There's absolutely no question that there is such a culture of bringing people in through this sector, but it's not even close to what we need. And in terms of meeting the challenges moving forward, we really do need to bring a lot more people in, not just to the sort of trade roles that apprenticeships are a huge part of, but also into professional roles. And we do need to start to attract people to really solve those big challenges at the background. But how do you make construction sector greener? We need people there to do that. Next slide. Careers, again, this is my final slide. It's again just to reinforce what I'm saying there. We will need a greater number of people across all construction role professionals and trades, those that tie in with the circular economy, those that will change how we build. We really do need talent that can problem solve and that can start to make such a contribution to how we all live. We will not be living as we live now as we move into the future, and we need people that can start to help changing that. For a lot of roles, the only recognised entry route is apprenticeships. That's for many of the trades. We do need employment opportunities, and I do recognise that's why it makes it so difficult. At times, it's how to find those employment opportunities in a sector that is quite guilty at times of employing people they know or family members. I am well aware that employment opportunities can be hard to find for those entry-level roles. We need to widen the pool of people who connect to the sector. I do tend to, like to highlight often that it is a very attractive sector that is huge demand, but there's not necessarily lots of people from a wide mix of backgrounds applying. We do need to widen that pool significantly. The construction opportunities are absolutely highly sought after. So I got some questions. I'm not going to, again, this is just to think about. If any of these questions, please feel to sort of note them and come on the call afterwards. So it is just, again, to explain, it's a chance to engage with Lorna, Stephanie and myself, and it's a chance. I don't think we'll solve everything on this call. It's far too short a call for that. You could easily spend a full day talking about these subjects, but it's a chance to start to talk about the reality of it. And again, we will pick it up afterwards. So what's your typical engagement around construction is my first question. And it is that question is, can you direct people into the sector to jobs routes at that entry level role, be it young people or adults, or do you hit difficulties? In practice, is it difficult to find people opportunities in construction? I think I know from the sort of discussion earlier, the answer to that is yes. But again, it would be good to hear a bit more from you. How do we widen the pool of people who are interested in careers here? For all, it's extremely popular. How do we change that? What would be useful? And again, the sector itself really does believe that talent attraction is a barrier. They don't believe me at times when I say it's an incredibly popular sector, that there's a queue of people looking to get in, and it is just what is your views here and what is your experience? So I'm going to come off call or come off, close the presentation. I'm not going off the call just yet, but I'll bring it back on screen and we will try and answer some of these questions. Can you type these questions so we can answer them given time? I will send them out as well. I can send them out in the email afterwards. I think the important thing to remember for this is that really this is just the start of the discussion. I absolutely know that it's such a big topic that an hour is very, very limited time, especially when you're crossing construction and the circular economy. We're talking about trade role, professional roles. Each of them could take a day to themselves. But if we can start the discussion and get some good links going, we can hopefully start to change things as we move forward. So I will stop sharing and I will take it from there. So stop presenting. Perfect. And I'll try and pop those questions in the chat. But again, it's not necessarily about those questions. It's about the broader. But so we've got questions in the chat now. Let me see for Lisa. So I think, is there anything that's really standing out that somebody would like to ask a question on or have a discussion around?
Once again, if you can raise your hand and I can take you off camera, off mic.
I'm going to start with the first big question is, if you have somebody come in and they're looking to get into construction, are you able to direct them or does it hit barriers? What's your experience there?
Just what I said before about the opportunities, basically, that's probably one of the biggest barriers. I feel like I'm sorry for just repeating something that's already been said.
No, and I think that's okay. I think it's worth, because I do think it's such an important point that it's worth repeating that it's not really, certainly for some of the roles, it's not about having to talk about the roles or raise awareness. It's about making sure people can access those opportunities. And I think that's a really important point that's just worth emphasising. There's a comment in the chat. I think there needs to be more emphasis on promoting professional technical opportunities. Often young people considering university won't even have construction courses on their radar. I couldn't agree more there. I think, again, it'd be, I guess a question for Stephanie and Lorna is, what would be your experience in terms of the promotion of careers for those sort of professional roles, or what else do you think can be done, as I put you in the spot?
I think it's, as I say, it's more about the awareness piece, so that if young kids are considering university for a particular role, as I said before, technical coordinators or commercial managers, these types of roles, you can go to business school or go to engineering school and still come out and go to construction. But I don't think they are aware that these types of skills kind of parlay into a construction career. And that's why, with the help of hopefully everybody on the call today, CITB can create something that allows them to understand if they're good at subject X, Y, and Z, then they can go on these types of careers, this type of journey in construction. So I think that will be quite useful, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that might be quite useful for young people to understand that.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, I totally agree, but I think there's, at the moment, careers in construction, I think careers across the board are changing so quickly as we drive towards net zero, and I think there's a kind of delay in terms of what's going on in schools and that understanding of what those jobs are out there. But obviously this is a really good start. But I think it's that piece of information that the career advisors and the teachers, they need greater awareness of, what do these jobs look like in construction? Because that's just something that I've discovered recently. So I think there's firstly that piece that needs to be done, that kind of recognition and understanding. But secondly, I think there needs to be greater emphasis on the organisations, the construction businesses. They need to have a great understanding of what goes on in schools, because I get asked a lot about what goes on in schools. What do they taught? What are their pathways? They don't know. They need to know so that they can then have the confidence to come into a school or come to an event and know that what they're saying is worthwhile. And I think that's missing a little bit, that kind of transparency between what goes on in schools, what goes on in business, and that there's a link kind of missing there, I would say. And we need to give those organisations confidence that what they are saying brings value to young people, whether it's in a school or whether it's in a careers event. That's
Totally
in the perfect world that I live in.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And again, I agree as well. It's that connection, especially around the professional roles and the pathways into some of the jobs that are there. And I think, again, looking at the sort of comments in the chat, there's one called, Mears recently had 900 applications for 20 jobs. So demand is there. So I think for certain jobs, it can be oversubscribed. But by the same token, for some of the professional, specialist roles where you're looking, especially entry for higher education, it's not there. I think as well, Lorna, it's an interesting point around how the jobs are changing. There's so many jobs that are sitting in the cusp that we're almost waiting for them. It's that thing about training people but before the jobs are there. So it will be a constant movable feast, especially in terms of some of the retrofit roles where the demand isn't quite there, but we absolutely can see it. The jobs are on the cusp of coming out en masse. The other question that's there is, and again, really, really interested to hear from the careers advisors, what can be done? In fact, Louise, I'll let you come in rather than me talk.
Sorry, I was in full flow there because I thought that you opened me up as soon as you. Sorry, again, what was I saying? Right, okay, again, we're back to there's absolutely no shortage of young people with National 4s, Nat 5s, hires who don't want to go to college or uni, but they want to get into construction. But the magic word for them is joiner, no matter whether they're hires or whether they're Nat 4. So, and that's the role that there's a public awareness around. So I'm just thinking about search engine optimization, because obviously they just go to Google, no matter what sites you have tried to raise their awareness of. And if I put in apprentice joiner on Google, it does take me to Go Construct, but it takes me to a load of bump. And then halfway down the page, Welsh apprenticeships are changing, bump, 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 that's not answering any of their questions about how to get into this. So I was just thinking of, like a page that's, that is search engine optimized, so it gets up there and it's so you want to be a joiner, and then it leads to almost a role finder like the Army have got on their website. So it's like, because someone thinks they want to be a joiner, that's how you then transfer that in, and that's how they transfer that interest from infantry into their other roles as well. So they're clicking on, yeah, I'm into games, I'm into this, I'm into that, and then it's taking them through to some other roles to look at. But then more importantly, really concrete stuff about, okay, so who recruits roofers, who has given work experience to roofers, who recruits quantity surveyors, who has given, because the young people feel like, ironically enough, like this is like joining the Masons getting into construction, and it is based on this handshake, and we can tell them all we like about networking. But for those for whom that doesn't mean just my uncle, it just seems like hard work. And they want to work hard when they've got the job, but they don't want to work hard getting the job. So it's like, transferring the interest, but then make it easy to find the actual practical answer at the end of that process. And I mean, like I had one this morning, I mean, like we could fill, I mean, we probably have about 60 each a year who come through our door saying in a school who say something about being a joiner, okay? And they could be, higher maths and into maths, and they could be all sorts of things. But firstly, we have to spend a lot of time going through the whole secrecy around join, and go through that conversation to try and deal with their presenting need before we can even get to this bit, about what might be, channel them into other things. I don't know, I'm kind of spraffing now, so I'll let other people join on.
I think that's really helpful, Louise. And I still think for construction, it's almost like we need to think of the careers into different pillars. So one pillar is how do you help those jobs and those kids where there's far too much demand, they're desperate for places, and it's really, really difficult to get in. And it does feel a bit like a secret society sometimes, if I'm honest. The construction love to do the woe is me, nobody wants to join us. The reality is they're queuing out the door for some jobs. And I think always do that for some jobs. We definitely need something around the professional pathways and how to attract different people, because it's not necessarily the first choice for kids that are highly academic, when ironically the career opportunity in terms of pay and opportunity is absolutely huge. It's probably pays a lot more and a lot better opportunities than some of the ones that they go into. Ironically, you know, there's some very, very well paid jobs there. Not that life is all about money, but it does help. But there's also some really interesting jobs there that are well paid in Tyne and Greenfield. There's definitely a bit about the whole diversity side, because we're not attracting diverse applicants. For all there might be a queue out the door, I can guarantee that queue out the door is not a diverse queue. So there's work to be done there. I think from the side, I'm very conscious as well, one of the questions that was in the chat, and I will try and pull this together afterwards, was around adding new courses for some of the new careers that are out there. The answer to that is yes, there's things that are starting to appear. So there's a course, you know, new courses at Robert Gordon's University, for example, in retrofit that have started. So they're starting to create materials and courses part of this ecosystem. And I think that's a bit tying in some of Lorna's point, that we probably need a way to try to upskill constantly, because it's moving constantly. And we're still at that point where we can see what's happening down the line, but there's not necessarily perfect pathways for it yet. But there will be, and there will be things that will develop. So I would say fairly rapidly over the next few years, as the jobs go away from policy pipeline to policy reality. I think we can see sort of some fairly big shifts. So again, I'm sort of very, very conscious of time, because I know that we just haven't even got to the questions at all. And salaries, I can see one comment, salary is a huge influencer. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of these construction jobs are exceptionally well paid. And I think sometimes that's not caught. I think what we will do is capture the meet and chat. We'll try and get the comments out between us, try to get some sort of answers out, and then we'll definitely pick up Lorna and Stephanie around next steps, and it will be how to engage and how to keep the engagement going. Because I think when we're talking construction careers, we're not talking about one problem. It's different. So problem's the right word, but it's not one area that we need to work on. There's probably multiple areas that need to be worked on depending on the job and group, and we'll try and pick up and have a think about how best to engage back. But thank you very much. I think we absolutely could have sat in a room and spent a day discussing this. I think that's what's standing out from this chat. So we will try and pick up, get some useful information, and get some really good engagement going. So thank you again, everyone.